The last thing we are going to cover today is how to determine the equation of a parabola algebraically if we are given the vertex and another point that the curve passes through. Okay, so the first step is from the vertex we are given, which we know is hk, we are going to create an equation in vertex form, which is y equals a x minus h squared plus k, and we are going to sub in h and k. All right, so we're told those points in our question, so we can sub in h and k. Then we are also told another point. Okay, so we're going to sub in x and y from the given point. Our point is xy. Okay, so then we will have a value subbed in for y, x, h, and k. So that would leave us with only one variable unknown, which is a. So then we are going to use BEDMAS, write our order of operations, to isolate and solve for a. And then once we have our a value, we can state the equation in vertex form. So again, y equals a, x minus h squared plus k, with only a, h, and k filled in. Okay, we can leave x and y blank, similar to when we were creating equations of lines algebraically, because x and y can be any variable. Okay, so those are the steps we're going to follow. We're going to look at an example. So if we want to find an equation of the parabola with a vertex of -3, -5, that passes through the point -4, -1, the first thing I'm going to do is just label variables on my points here. So if the vertex is -3, -5, the vertex is represented by h and k, and then my other point that this is passing through is x and y. Okay, so I'm writing my blank vertex form, y equals a, x minus h squared plus k, and I'm going to fill in h and k. So I'm going to say let h be -3 and k be -5. And I'm going to fill those into my equation. So I will have y equals a, x minus -3 squared minus 5. Okay, you can write, actually here, I guess, just for the sake of showing this, this is going to be like a plus minus 5. Typically, I wouldn't show these steps. I would just go right to my next line, but I just want you to see what's happening here. Okay, so if I simplify that, I'll have y equals a, x. When I'm subtracting -3, I'm really adding 3. Okay, so we remember your x lies, so even though h is -3, it's going to look plus 3 squared, and then plus -5, we can just write that as subtract 5. Okay, so typically I don't show this line when I'm doing this. I just go right to this line. If you want to show the previous line, that's fine, just to make sure that you put your sign in correctly within the brackets. But once you practice, you can usually go right to this line without having to show that first step. Okay, you just need to remember that your h sign is getting flipped. Okay, so it was -3 and now it's +3, but your k sign stays the same. So this is -5 and it looks like a -5. Okay, so that's subbing in my vertex, and now I'm going to sub in my x and my y value. Okay, so I'm going to let x equal -4, y equal -1. Some people like to do both of these all in one step, so sub in x, y, h, and k all in one step. Again, that's fine if you are confident with your algebra and you're making sure you're putting everything in the right spot. I like to just do it in 2 steps to make sure that I'm putting everything in the right spot, right? That I'm not mixing up h and x or k and y. Again, matter of personal preference, whatever gives you the correct answer every time. So y is -1, so I'll have -1 is equal to a, and then -4 plus 3 squared, subtract 5, and I'm trying to simplify and isolate for a. So you need to follow BEDMAS, so these steps are always going to be the same. The first thing I'm going to do, BEDMAS tells me I need to do brackets first, so I'm going to simplify this piece inside the brackets first. So this will still be -1 is equal to a. -4 plus 3 gives me -1 squared, subtract 5. Okay, BEDMAS, next comes e exponents, so I'm going to do this next, -1 squared. Again, keep in mind if you're going to type this in your calculator, it likely is going to tell you -1, but you are smarter than your calculator. -1 squared is -1 times -1, which is just +1. Okay, so technically it'll go away. I'll show that in the next line. Then we are trying to isolate a, so I want to get rid of this -5 here, so I need to add 5 to both sides. -1 plus 5 is 4, and this is just equal to a times 1 is just a. Okay, in some cases, the number that you're multiplying by here is not going to be 1, so you would have to divide. I'll show another example like that, but in this case, we are already isolated for a, so a is equal to 4. So our last step is we just need to state the equation. So we can say, therefore, y equals 4 times x plus 3 squared minus 5. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going back to my equation from this line here, and then I am just filling in a, h, and k. Okay, h and k were already filled in for you in that case, but I'm just subbing in my a value as 4, and that would be the equation in vertex form for the parabola with a vertex at -3, -5 that also passes through point -4, -1. Okay, so if I look at one more example of that, just so you can see what happens if I need to divide. Let's say I have the vertex is -1, -5, and then it goes through the point, let's say 6, -2. Okay, so again, I'm going to start with my base equation with nothing filled in yet. And then I'm labeling my points from the equation, okay, so, or from what I'm given. So my vertex is -1, -5, so this is h, this is k, this is x, this is y. So first I'm going to let h be -1, k be -5. So in this case, I'm just going to show you what this would look like if I didn't show that like first step that to me is a little bit redundant. So I'll have y equals a, x. So if h is -1, we know x lies, so it's going to look like a +1 when I put it in. If you're not sure of that, then you're going to show x minus -1, which will become positive. And then my k value is -5, so this is just going to be a -5 here. Okay, you can show that in between step that I showed in the previous example if you get confused about how to put that in. Then I'm going to sub in my x and my y values. So I'm going to let x equal 6, y equal -2. So I'll have -2 is equal to a, 6 plus 1 squared minus 5. My numbers here are going to be a bit messy, but that's fine. So then here, I'm going to do inside the brackets first. So -2 is equal to a times 7 squared minus 5. Then I'm going to do this 7 squared -2 is equal to, so 7 squared is 49 minus 5. I'm going to get rid of this 5 by adding it to both sides. negative 2 plus 5 is 3 is equal to, and then we can just write this as 49a. Then I'm going to divide this. This was the step we didn't do in the previous example, but to isolate for a, I need to divide this side by 49. Divide this side by 49. Sorry, I just made up this example off the top of my head, so this number is really awful. I'm just going to leave it as a fraction because I know that's not going to give me a nice decimal number at all, right? It would give you like 0.061, like it's a gross decimal. Typically in these examples, you will get something nice, and if it's a fraction, it will be like 1/2 or 1/4, maybe even 1/3. But again, I just made up these numbers from the top of my head, so it gave me a horrible, horrible fraction. And then my last step will just be to state the equation. So I'd have y equals 3 over 49x plus 1 squared minus 5. Okay, that would be the equation of my parabola. And again, I don't need to fill in x and y. I'm just subbing in a, and that is from this line. Right, that's how I state my final answer. The only difference is I'm going to sub in a, and that is the equation of the parabola with a vertex at -1, -5 that also passes through the point 6, -2.